Hello and welcome to our third YouTube video. Now you'll notice that I'm not alone today. I have my fellow director and also more importantly my husband next to me. And actually I'm not going to be speaking very much at all throughout this. I'm going to hand over to Paul. This video is about how to get the best out of calling HMRC. Now we thought it would be a good idea really to have Paul's view. Paul is quite new to the business. I've been having to deal with HMRC on and off for a good 15, 16 years. Paul has had to start from the get-go. And yeah, I think his comments on HMRC's processes may be quite similar to what some of you are thinking. I think I tend to accept a lot of it because it's been going on for so long in my life. But yeah, Paul is brand new. He gets the sort of fears and frustrations, and we want to talk you through some good tips and tips that we both found to help you get the best out of calling HMRC. So without further ado, hello, Paul.
Hi there.
I'll hand over to you, and we will start our HMRC presentation. Okay.
Hi there. As mentioned, my name's Paul. I am Laura's husband, and yeah, I'm fellow director. I think the first thing to mention is that I'm not a VAT advisor, and I have come into business fairly recently, literally 9 months or so ago. And I've been the one calling HMRC. We do that just for all of the ongoing stuff that we have with our clients. The next step, obviously, one of the things for me was that initially when I was starting to call HMRC, I was very fearful and a little frustrated because, not getting through to the right department, not the right people.
And people basically saying computer says no, I think.
Yeah, and I think that was my impression of HMRC prior to this. And so over the last 9 months, I've actually learned, from going from a complete lack of knowledge of HMRC, I've kind of learned how to get the best out of the phone calls. And there's a couple of things that I've learned definitely in making sure that when I get through to HMRC, because it is sometimes a little bit of a wait, that I get the best out of a call. And I think our other point of even making this video was to help people realize that you're not alone. This is every single person goes through the same fears, the same frustrations. We speak to clients on a daily basis. And they have the same frustrations that I had initially.
Everyone's got a story. Everyone's got, oh, you'll never guess what HMRC told me. And we're like, we probably could guess because we've heard it all before. But yeah, I think it's all about making sure that you can have a productive conversation with HMRC. And we're going to hopefully give you a few points as to how.
Hopefully.
Okay, so why call HMRC in the first place? What have you found?
Well, I think the first thing to mention is that I think a lot of the people that we deal with on a daily basis, their first point of call is a nasty letter coming through the door from HMRC. And my first bit of advice is that don't just bury the letter. Pick the letter up, read it. If it doesn't make sense, pick up and call the general VAT line first. As a first point of call, I think these guys are great. They've got a fairly broad range of knowledge of all that. And if they're not able to give you an answer reasonably quickly, they should be able to guide you into the right sort of direction.
Yeah, I'd add there that if you get a brown letter that is general in nature, call the general department. If you get one with a specific department number on, call that instead, because they'll probably be able to help you more
quicker.
The second one is error corrections. I think we tend to spend a lot of our time on the phone to HMRC chasing error corrections. They are notoriously delayed, and that isn't showing any signs of slowing down. So yeah, that's quite a big one. You've been on the phone a lot to the registration department.
The registrations team, yeah. I think VAT registration is obviously a big thing, and although the online system seems to be very user friendly, I think that what we've come to notice with clients that we do their registrations for is that the questions, whilst seemingly simple, you have to answer them in a very specific way. And we recently did a VAT registration for someone that had tried 3 times doing it on their own. And actually, when we looked at several of the questions, they'd actually been answered slightly differently to how they should have done for their particular business. So we had to chase those and the deregistrations as well.
Didn't you actually hear from HMRC and the registrations team that they said they actually want you to phone them and they're sort of trying to combat fraud or something at the moment? So they actually say we're trying to basically be frustrating.
At this particular moment in time, there seems to be an awful lot of fraudulent overseas companies, especially, that are trying to make error corrections and VAT reclaims. And so what I was told on the phone was that HMRC are deliberately trying to encourage agents or the directors of those companies to phone in, so that they've at least got a point of call rather than just having an email trail, which could have come from anywhere.
Exactly. And yes, even though that doesn't really help those that are wanting to do it legitimately, especially sort of imagining having to chase HMRC to register you for VAT to actually, so that you can pay their money. But anyway, beside the point, that is one of the things that I think you've spent a lot of time on the phone too over the last 9 months or so.
Yeah.
The next one is overseas inquiries. Now we, as a rule, don't want to be biased, but we find the overseas team very helpful and very friendly normally. So thank you if you're watching and you're from there, then thank you very much. But we normally find that they are actually one of the best departments that we deal with in HMRC. But that could be anything. I think it's normally through what the old NetPoo department was, but that now incorporates quite a lot. Yeah, I don't know why they're as friendly, but maybe it's because they can't speak to as many people on the phone because no one can get hold of them because they're overseas. Next one is debt management. Obviously, we had quite a lot of this in COVID, where people had to call to sort of get a debt management plan in place. So yes, that's something that we as agents are not allowed to do. So it has to come from you. So all these tips are really useful side of things. And also you might want to speak to specific officers involved in case. This is where you do get that brown letter and it's from a specific person saying contact me specifically. So that's why you might want to call HMRC about that. There may be more of those situations, but we found in these particular instances, a phone call can be very useful.
And it's worth mentioning just before we finish moving on to the next one that out of those 6 options there, each and every single one of those actually has a different telephone number. So if you've not got through to the right department, just ask if you can be put through to the correct department.
So we are going to split the tips into pre-call, call and post-call. So these all pretty much come from Paul, by the way. So it's just what he's found. And I've stuck in a few that are a little bit more technical in there. Just what he's found. Literally.
I feel really grown up now.
Yeah.
I think the first one is like genuinely, and I've put this on there, do you actually have to call HMRC in the first place? If you received a letter and it all makes sense and you're aware of everything, then you probably don't just need to confirm it. You just need to do action whatever's been on the letter or not. Other than that, though, your online VAT account is actually a really good source of information, as well as HMRC's own website on VAT. There's a whole swathe of information on there.
Although, yeah, dubious as to I think some of the notices can be a bit more confusing than they like to believe, but they can. You can find the answer online, and sometimes it is a lot more productive than a phone call with someone who is not really familiar and doesn't know the obscure part of the law.
Yeah. Do you have permission to call? I think this is really key. I have had to call on behalf of our clients. Now, we as agents have to sign a specific form called a 64(8), which gives us permission to talk on your behalf to HMRC. For you guys, if you've got, you're going to have specific directors or people within your company that are allowed to speak about VAT on your VAT account. Make sure that if you are going to be one of those people that's calling, make sure that you've been added to that list.
Yeah, so certain things. So for some sort of instances, I think like registration, I think most employees can phone, but areas such as debt management, so it has to be a director. So there's no point in obviously going through the waiting time of HMRC to be told, actually, sorry, you need to hang up straight away. So yeah, check that you are the right person to be making the call
in the first place. Yeah, this I found I made this mistake. I made this mistake dozens of times. Due to the call wait-in times, sometimes you will have to wait a while, and I've mentioned this again further throughout the slides. Get all of your information ready beforehand. Get your VAT number. Get any reference numbers. Get any of your questions. Get them all written down, prepped, and opened up on a different tab on your computer or on a list or whatever. I've made the mistake of you get a little bored after waiting for half an hour. And then all of a sudden I've been working on something else and then I've got to go back and find out where all the information is. So yeah, get all of your information ready at the start. Oh, and yeah, this goes back to call waiting. I book in all of our calls for 9 a.m. in the morning. That's when the phone line's open for most of the stuff we're dealing with. And I know it's early, and I know it's first time in the morning. You're probably still having your morning coffee, checking your emails and everything like that. Honestly, for time management, it really will pay dividends, because at 9 a.m. in the morning, you're much more likely to get through within 5 or 10 minutes. And I found it to be as quick as that at that time of day. So that's really helpful. Oh, yeah. Make sure your address is correct on your account. So there's been a number of times where we have been given an address by a client, and however, that address actually hasn't been updated by the client on their VAT account. So we've called up in good faith with thinking that we've got the correct address, and then not been able to speak on the client's behalf because there's a mismatch between the two addresses.
Yeah, this is just about making sure. I mean, to be honest, that is a requirement anyway. When you do move addresses, you should update your account, and that is a legal requirement. But you know, I think most people can probably be forgiven for thinking when you move addresses, that's not the first thing you do. But just make sure that that is the case. Otherwise, people can't easily get through security.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
this is your biggest.
Yeah, no. I think this was the thing. Initially, I was getting very frustrated with, I mean, I've waited for over 45 minutes, 48 minutes to get through. And yeah, no, 45, I remember I've looked at the phone. And I think if you genuinely mentally prepare yourself for the wait, you know it's coming. Whereas if you call and you've only got 10 minutes and you're rushing and you're busy, and you expect to get through in 10 minutes, you're probably going to end up even more frustrated. So yeah, prepare yourself for a wait and put it in your diary. I think those two things will help you to kind of enter the call in a slightly better frame of mind rather than a rushed one.
Yes.
I think that's it.
So, excuse the crazy animations, by the way. I said to Paul, here are all the animations for PowerPoint, and he just went crazy. So yeah.
Thoroughly enjoyed the animations.
Okay, so yeah, the first thing, obviously call the right department. As Paul said, there's no point in phoning one department and waiting half an hour and then, you know, getting through and then being told, no, to put the phone down and call someone else. Obviously, they do sometimes transfer you, and that can be done, but it doesn't always happen. Sometimes you get phone drops, I think, as well, and hang up. So yeah, I think that's not always easy.
I think this is really key. I've put if they can't help you. I think if they're not able to answer the specific questions you've got, or they don't seem as helpful as you might have expected, ask which department can, and get that specific department's telephone number. We do know that we deal with TOMs, which is obviously quite a specific type of VAT. And we do know that the experts that are on TOMs actually don't have direct telephone numbers. When we've had to do pieces of work, they've had to be referred from one department to this department, and we haven't been able to get access. So that has made it a bit trickier. But generally speaking, if the person on the end of that phone cannot help you, ask who can, and get either warm transferred through or get that department's telephone number for future.
If they'll give it out. And obviously we know that's not always the case, but I think it helps. And we'll talk in a second about really trivial things they may seem, but like tone of voice. I think Paul is quite chatty. We talk a lot about Paul having like a builder voice, and he likes to kind of, you know, sort of get in with everyone. I think he sort of chats to HMRC quite a lot as if they're his friends, and I think they do tend to kind of
respond better,
help a lot more. There is a lot of people that may have a sort of party line. They do tend to respond to kind of a more jokey way of
I think they're human beings at the end of the day, and they're doing the job whereby they've got people calling in every day. And let's face it, nobody calls HMRC fun, do they? They've generally called HMRC because they've got a problem. And so they're going in with an attitude that I've got a problem. And so actually, if you can kind of almost sort of reset that before you even make the call, that will definitely be helpful. This is something I found out the other day. So different departments actually seem to have access to different information. So I called a department the other day, and that particular department didn't have some of the information that we had already sent into HMRC. So we had to be transferred to a different department. They said, oh yeah, we've got it all in front of us. So that's well worth knowing. So if somebody says to you, yeah, I haven't got that in front of me, it may well not be their fault. It may just literally be that they aren't able to access that actual information.
And also, it means don't panic that it hasn't been received. It might just be that that computer system doesn't have it on it. I mean, it's all, I mean, yeah, I mean, I think most of us in the non-HMRC world kind of think, why would you not have that? Why would you not just have a list
Definitely
of everything?
not.
But that isn't how the HMRC world works. This is one that I added into this because I think a lot of people have this sort of us and them attitude of thinking that HMRC kind of are out to get them and stuff. And actually, it's not the case. Most of the people I speak to in HMRC are not out to get anyone, but they do want things to be done right. And I think, you know, most taxpayers, if they're doing something wrong, it's unknowingly. So HMRC are normally quite reasonable. They're actually very understanding in the right situations. We've dealt with loads of cases, obviously, in the past few years where things have gone wrong due to COVID, especially in the industry that we work in, the travel industry. And HMRC aren't just sort of saying, oh, that's, you know, that's tough luck for you. They will actually sort of come out and say, you know, look, we absolutely understand that. Let us try and help you. But obviously they have to do their job as well. They actually want, they're not anti-taxpayer, they actually want the taxpayers to prosper because obviously that comes cyclical and gives HMRC more tax in every which way. So they're actually kind of on your side. It's not a sort of, you know, obviously in our job, we often go up against HMRC when we're arguing to them. But as a general concept, HMRC want taxpayers to prosper. So don't, I would say, have the attitude of they're nasty, they're out to get me, they want to take it. They're actually there and they can be incredibly cooperative and incredibly reasonable. So please do bear that in mind.
Yeah, and I think I said this earlier. Remember, the person dealing with, you know, may not have the full story, and it might take a little bit of time and patience. You have received a letter. You may have made several phone calls to HMRC before, but the person on the end of the phone is going to take a little while to read through any previous notes that have been written. And so a little bit of patience on your side will definitely pay dividends.
Yeah, no, I think we find that a lot. And I think we, especially when you're being transferred between departments, but everyone has this, when you're trying to, you know, open a broadband account, you often get someone saying, what's the issue? And then what's the issue again? And what's the issue? And you find yourself explaining to 20 different people. But that is often the case here, especially with the computer systems. So you do perhaps need to have some patience. I think some of this is quite an emotional topic. If someone sort of said, you know, if someone's got a letter saying their business owes a lot of money, you're understandably in panic mode. But obviously, you know, it's easy for us to say it's not their fault. It's probably easier for us to call as agents because we're not as emotionally involved and we're probably a bit more reasonable. But do bear in mind that the person obviously that you're speaking to probably isn't the one that the frustration is warranted with.
No, agreed.
And this is Paul's, I think, shining glory, really, is that his biggest asset is just the niceness that he gives to everyone on the phone.
I always believe it's much more difficult to be really horrible or firm with someone if they are being overly nice to you. And I've put be nice. I do know it's frustrating. I have waited, as I say, I think my average call waiting time is over 30 minutes if I take all of the calls in that I've done, and that's including the short ones as well as the long ones. And just remember that they've been dealing with other pissed off people on the phone all day long. If you've called them at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they've been on it since 9 a.m. And they've probably not had anybody ask them how their day's going. They've launched straight in and everything like that. So genuinely, I have found, you know, and it seems like such a simple thing to say, but having a little bit of empathy and a little bit of thought and consideration for them. I know you've got a tax problem. I know you've got a VAT problem, but just remember that you need that person to help you. And I have found that they will probably be a lot more helpful if you are a little bit more reasonable and your tone of voice and everything like that is a little nicer.
Yeah, I think there's one time I sort of said to Paul, I've never actually seen this in the sort of 16 years I've been in VAT. He got someone from HMRC, a random sort of officer on the phone. A client was a bit upset because I think they've been waiting for an error notification for, a year or so. Anyone's guess with HMRC at the moment, but the client really needed proof that the error notification was in progress. And HMRC have never done that, to my knowledge, but Paul got someone to email us saying, I really hope, you know, this is to confirm it's in progress.
And funny enough, Yeah, the reason that we needed that error notification was actually because a different department within HMRC had a different challenge with the company. And so that's actually definitely worth mentioning, is that don't presume that the left hand knows what the right hand is doing with HMRC.
They almost never assume that over there.
Yeah, and
it's not to be bad to HMRC, it just doesn't, do not talk the different departments at all. So don't assume if you've spoken to HMRC corporate tax, they'll have no idea what your VAT position is, and vice versa.
Agreed.
So it's definitely, yeah, but I think the key with this, I think on the call, it is really a case of treating HMRC like a human being rather than a sort of official government body. They try and scare everyone with their brown letters, but they are people. They have families. They're probably thinking about what they're going to do tonight as well, what you're going to have for dinner, just as you are. They might have had a bad commute. So yeah, I think it's just about that and making sure that everyone gets the best out of things. So after the call, or as the call's coming to an end, what can we do? And the first is ask for next steps or a follow-up in writing. This won't apply to everything, but if you've gone on the phone, just make sure that you realise that if HMRC say something on the phone, it doesn't really mean very much in terms of any decisions unless it's in writing. So anything that is, if you get something from HMRC, either a good thing or a bad thing on the phone, can you say, is there a way that we can get a follow-up in writing? If not, make sure you confirm next steps with them.
Agreed. Yeah, I think definitely get a call reference number because then you can remember what has been said on. Well, HMRC will have to log everything that's been said on the call and notes, and get the name of the agent. I always at the start of the call, I always get the name of the agent and I call them by their name throughout the whole way. And, little things like that, I think, make a difference. But actually having a call reference number for your own records and the name of the agent makes it easier for your note taking so that you know what has been said in the call. And I think that's a super helpful thing when you come to having to call again. And I think that's what I've just said here is make a call log. I think we've currently got about 8 different challenges going on for clients at the moment, some that have been ongoing for over a year. And so, there's lots of different points of contact that we've had. And if I've got to try and remember 8 different clients and all the different points of contacts, I'm going to miss things. So just as HMRC will log the call and what happened on the call, what has been agreed, I'd suggest you do the same. It doesn't need to be extensive notes, but just remember who you spoke to, what the call was about, what was agreed, and as Laura's already mentioned, what the next steps are.
Yeah. And then the final bit here is that if the outcome of the call isn't satisfactory, it may be that it's time for some specialist advice. I think a lot of these calls are things that taxpayers can do very well on their own. Sometimes it does need someone to sort of say to HMRC, no, come on, hang on a minute, that this should be dealt with by now, come on, get that error correction that you've been sitting on for 16 months, get it sorted, because that's not fair on someone to wait, take someone else to do it. So sometimes it's a case of it's not you, it's just the fact that whatever the particular point is, it needs a little bit more either force or a bit of someone quoting the legislation at them to sort of help. So I think obviously that's where we come in. Some of the time we come in way before now, when people sort of say, just want you to deal with HMRC for us. Obviously we do that. As you see, we like HMRC, we're best friends with them. But yeah, sometimes it is just a case of, no, now it's time to step back and let someone else who is a little bit more impartial and who has a massive orange book of legislation on their desk to sort it out. So
I think that's actually really worth mentioning is when I first came into the business and I genuinely believed that every single letter that came from HMRC was 100% correct. Mm-hmm. And so that was why I was fearful. And what I've come to realize is that actually these letters do get automated. Mistakes are made. HMRC isn't perfect. And I think that is where we come along. And it is sometimes if you're looking at your VAT account and the letter that you've received doesn't make sense, then it might not be right. And so actually, if you're not able to resolve it, it is maybe time to get somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I still sort of feel whenever we get a brown letter through for our business, we still sort of think, oh God, what have we done wrong? I think we received a load of letters the other day saying, we submitted your VAT return late, here's a penalty point. And then we realised actually these are for for clients that nothing to do with us. It was for clients. Didn't say that it was for not us. We just sort of said, here you go, VAT nav, here's a penalty point. And it was only when we read the VAT registration number, we realised it was actually completely not us at all. But anyway, that sort of scared me, thinking, God, I need to do my VAT right. I'm a VAT advisor, and pretty sure I had done until then. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, but anyway, I think I hope that's been useful. I hope that sort of showed you that you firstly are not alone, but also that it is possible to have a productive call with HMRC, and even someone who's never done that before and is learning on the job is there. It just takes a bit of chat, I suppose. I think this is our standard thing we have to say at the end of every webinar. It's not particularly relevant here as much, but obviously please note that the information contained here is for general information only. Anything in terms of your own circumstances for that, we would obviously need to discuss with you specifically. So please take this as general information only, and not as the letter of the law or something that you apply to your circumstances without checking thoroughly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for listening.
We said that was going to be 10 minutes. I think it's probably a lot over, but all thoroughly worth hearing, I hope. So thank you very much. Obviously check out our YouTube channel for many more videos on the subject of VAT. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Anne.